Anchors away, Salem. Welcome to another edition of Our Awesome Authors. I am B. Lee Coyne, your host, and we're privileged today to have none other than Don Berger. Don is a retired commercial deep-sea diver, and we're going to get some maritime stories to regale us today. The answer is blowing in the wind. Don, welcome aboard.
Hi there.
And Don and I met maybe 4 or 5 years ago in the good old writers group called WYTT, Writers Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, every Thursday in the main library plaza room. So come join us 12:30 any Thursday and find out what we're all about. Cool. Don, I understand that you were born in a place called Oklahoma, which doesn't have very much sea around it. How the heck did you get from Oklahoma to California and then Oregon? Help us track the trip of your journey, your voyage west.
Well, I didn't have much choice in what happened. I was 3 weeks old when I was flown from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Southern California. And then from there I was raised on a farm in Pomona and went to live with my dad and stepmother from the ages of 11 through 17. Went into the Navy at that time.
I salute you.
Submarine service. And when I was able to get out 4 years later, discharged in San Diego.
San Diego is a big naval port. I think a lot of retired admirals wind up there. That's the rumor.
Yes.
What was San Diego like for you in your young days of forming your character?
Oh, well, that's kind of hard to say. It was a big city. Not that I'm exactly used to that at the time, but it had seaports and the ocean right next to it, and I loved it.
Yes.
So I was able to enjoy the beach and then work at the same time when I first got out.
Did you work at the beach somehow? Or?
No, I worked at a big shipyard when I first got out of the Navy there, called NASCO. And when they went on strike, I was already starting to do commercial deep sea diving at that time, but I was only able to do it on the weekends.
Okay.
And I wanted to see how well it would work out for me.
Tell us a little bit about your Navy adventures.
Well, I was in
When and where did you go?
Well, when I was trained at the Naval Station in San Diego, my first tour of duty was going to be in Pearl Harbor. I was designated for the submarine service at that time. And of course I was on boot camp leave when unfortunately Kennedy was shot. And
63.
Yeah. And then went over to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii and started my Navy career over there for about 4 years and 4 months.
I'm going to mention something about Pearl Harbor I learned when we were there about 2-3 years ago. Pearl Harbor is a very shallow harbor. It was called that once upon a time. The native Hawaiians used to go diving for pearls, actually, in that it's a basin. It's almost like having two peninsulas of land hugging it in and a little cove or channel, as I recall, that you could get in it. Am I correct in that, the way it's
Well, there's
configured?
a couple of basins in there. One of them's called Westlock. They're shallow water basins. I don't know much about the pearl divers at that time.
That's what I was told. Anyway, it was believed at the time by the Americans, before World War II actually was launched, that those areas were torpedo-proof because it was so shallow. The U.S. didn't know that there was such a thing as torpedoes that could deal with that low terrain. And so, meanwhile, the Japanese secretly developed a new kind of torpedo that would work there. And actually, on my birthday, believe it or not, November 26th of 41 was the day that the Japanese fleet sailed from northern Japan all the way to just north of Hawaii. And it was from there that they launched the airplanes that came from the ship, not from the mainland. And that's how the U.S. military was fooled. We had assumed that somehow they would fly all the way from Japan and that it would be very hard because you couldn't do a non-stop flight from Japan to Hawaii. And so we thought it was not really feasible. And that's what we were caught off guard there. Also, the same day, our radar was really brand new, and they had a newly trained technician, and he saw on the radar that there's some planes flying toward Hawaii. And it was maybe 5, 6 in the morning, and he woke up his commander and called us, you know, there are planes on the radar, I think we're in for an attack. He says, nah, you're just making up things. It must be the U.S. Fleet from California flying in from the mainland to here to Pearl Harbor. And so the admiral was fooled. He was ready to give the alert, but he wasn't believed, and the rest is history. I think they started at some air bases nearby before they actually hit Pearl Harbor, which was the naval base there.
Yeah, Hickam and Barbers Point.
Okay, you got it. Okay, so tell us about life in Pearl Harbor, and then pretty soon we'll get into a little bit about how you got into writing, okay?
Okay.
Good.
Well, when I was attached to the submarine base there, I was on torpedo weapon retrievers, and I was a swimmer, started out as a swimmer on those boats. They were 74 foot long, and we'd go ahead and attach a cage to the nose of the steam torpedoes, which were 21 foot in length, with a cable, and we'd hoist those things up on board. The deck of the retriever sloped down into the water, and of course when we pulled them up, they were on rollers, and they'd come up on deck that way. And I was attached with the submarine there a bit, the halibut. So.
The halibut is the name of the boat?
Yeah, submarine.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know this. Come December 7th of this year, 2014, CCTV may want to do a re-showing of this particular thing because it coincides with Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th. A day that shall go down in the infamy of man, according to Franklin D. Roosevelt. I was only a little kid in diapers at the time, 2 weeks old, but that's what I heard he said in his not-so-friendly fireside. No, he didn't do it the fireside chat. He said that to Congress. He made a declaration of war at Congress. Anyway, you were in the Navy. You went to Pearl Harbor. How many years did you spend with the Navy?
4 years and 4 months.
Man. And what was the hardest mission you were on? Forget it. Delete.
That's hard to say because the submarine, the torpedo weapon retrievers, no problem. But being a swimmer to pick up the torpedoes was one because I came within a second of losing my life to a 12-foot hammerhead.
Oh my gosh! Let's hear about that.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting. This fish here will protect us from any hacky-packy naughty stuff.
But yeah, it was a hot day. We were about 10 miles off Barbers Point waiting for a submarine to fire, and another person and myself wanted to cool off, so we're jumping from the top of the cabin into the water. And I'd open my eyes every now and then, but opening your plain eyes in salt water, they're a little blurry. And of course I'm sitting with my arms across the back roller, which dips into the water.
You were being stalked there.
And talking to the guy on a catwalk above me. Well, I no sooner decided to get out of the water, I just drew my last leg out of the water, and a great big brown streak went by right where I was at. And the guy said it was about a 12-foot hammerhead. So after that, when I went
I'm
chasing...
glad you're still around there, Don. Congratulations at outmaneuvering Mr. Hammerhead.
Barely.
Barely.
After that, any more
By the
swimming
skin
for torpedoes.
of your teeth and his teeth.
I wore my mask, and I took a knife and fence with me.
Wow.
So.
Okay. So, in the Navy, you said you work with submarines and all. Tell me a little bit about Navy food. Is it as harsh as rumor has it?
Not, at least not in the submarine service.
Not the submarine service.
Yeah, it was pretty good food in the submarine service.
Now, when the Beatles did the song Yellow Submarine, was that nostalgic for you?
Not really.
I like the analogies bit and all. Okay, so you got discharged from the Navy in, would be 1964, 65?
1968.
Oh. Yeah,
January of
yeah,
1968.
that 68 was a big year for riots and stuff, and that was the year they assassinated both Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy. It's a very bittersweet year for most of us, and riots in Chicago and Watts, et cetera, et cetera. So you got out, and what was the first thing you did when you got home?
Oh, well, I was detached there in San Diego, and so I had to go out and find myself a place to live. So I really didn't go home at that point. I just found a job and found a place to live and started working.
Was the job related to maritime stuff?
Yes, it was at National Steel Shipbuilding.
And you built ships?
Yes, I built some of the huge ships the Navy has. The new LSTs that they had with the big bow derricks on them, 520 feet in length.
Do you have any pictures of those ships with you?
No, I don't.
No, okay. Would you like, before we get into your book, would you like to describe some of this deep sea equipment? Sort of a grown-up show and tell for our audience.
Okay.
Hi, audience. Here's what deep sea diving is all about. Go for it, Don.
Okay. When I first started diving, when I was about 12 years old, and this is the first regulator I started with. It's an Aquamaster 1958 model. And I used that for a number of years, even when I started commercial diving with hookah. Here's the attachment that you put the hookah hose on, and of course you've got to wear that on the back of a plate strapped around your body. And I've done marine salvage work as well, and this is a voice tube from an old ship. And I found that right at the entrance in Point Loma, in the main ship channel.
What is it used for?
Well, if you're on a bridge, you open up the top and say half engine speed, engine room, or whatever the terminology was at that time, and conduct the engine room. Or you can talk to some other part of the ship.
So it's like a boat microphone in a way.
Right. That was before the
audio system,
other communications came out.
Good. Video Ranger, over and out. Aye, aye, sir, Roger. I still remember those days.
Yeah.
Black and white television.
But they had several of those on the bridge of the ship, so they could talk to whatever part of the ship they wanted to. That was communication back then, back in the 20s and probably 30s.
How did you get involved in writing the transition from just simply diving and doing salvage work to putting some of your thoughts on paper? What motivated you? What got you in that direction?
I started writing when I was about 12 years old. And when I got out of the Navy, I took a course through the famous writers' school at that time. And after going into commercial deep sea diving for a number of years, I got the thought, you know, I've had a lot of experiences that people will never have, they will never see. And I thought, you know, it'd be a really good idea to write those experiences down in a book and share them with people. I mean, how many people have heard the story or been able to talk to a person who actually had to spend 30 minutes underwater decompressing with a 12-foot man-eating shark?
We'll hear that story very shortly.
Yeah. But
do you have any scrapes or scratches on your arms from any close encounters of the third kind? Or
no.
No, you got away scot-free.
Almost. Pretty much.
Okay. Are there any fishes that you've encountered that look at all like our little mock-up here?
Over in Hawaii.
Oh.
Yeah, that's more like a type of an angelfish that you might see over in
really?
Hawaii.
Okay. We just brought it in for a little decoration to set the mood so that our audience at home can get some visual appeal for the fish tales that we're telling. Okay. So you went to this school. Do you remember what some of the early themes were that you would write about?
Basically, when I first started writing, which is something I wanted to do, I started out writing about the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, they fascinated
that's old
me.
hat. Real
Yeah.
old hat.
They fascinated me. But it was off and on during that time until I got out of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, it's been off and on over the years.
Yeah. Okay. Let's share with us one of your stories. Would you like to come read it, Noel?
Well, I've got, I brought two. One of them is humorous, and the other one is...
Let's start with the humorous one. We'll start with the one with the shark first. That's the adventurous.
Okay.
And then we'll turn to humorous. Number
Okay.
2. Adventure, drama, cameras go rolling. Yay.
Well, this one here is titled Mega Shark. And this, I've got 5 sections, 6 sections in the book. One deals with tenders, one with divers, one creatures of the sea, one of the boat stories, et cetera, et cetera. So this is...
What's the name of the book?
It's Floating Debris and the Kodiak Chicken.
Oh, floating debris.
Floating debris was about a big basking shark we ran over, about 20 feet long. And the Kodiak chicken is about a chicken I had on board for a day.
Kodiak is one of the Aleutian Islands.
Well, it is, but that was also the name of one of my commercial boats.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So.
Good. Before we get into it, is there a place that one could buy your book, or does one write to you, or is it available in the bookstore, the book bin, or?
Not yet. I'm hoping to have an agent for this next year.
Okay.
So
stay tuned.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have an agent for it.
Terrific. Let's hear the story.
Okay. Well, this one here is called Mega Shark. Mm-hmm. Research says the megalodon shark still swims the ocean. In the South Pacific Islands, islanders tell stories of a family of 7 sharks, all around 65 feet long, in the waters around Calapoo Island. Mm. In Mexico, off Baja, the fishermen tell of El Demonio Negro, or Black Demon, a big black shark also around 60 feet long. Off Cape Town in December 1942, a photo of a huge shark was caught in the background of 2 German U-boats operating off the South African coast. Mm. They estimated the dorsal fin to be 6 feet tall, and about 65 feet behind that was the large tail fin of a shark.
That's scary. In
South Africa, the fishermen refer to a huge shark as the submarine. It is supposed to be about 100 feet long, and pictures also have been taken. While in the submarine service stationed at the subbase in Pearl Harbor, 1965, I remember talk going around a base about one of the submarines returning with large scrape marks on both sides of the back of the conning tower, as if something tried to bite a hold of it.
Yeah. Don, you might want to look into the camera every so often so that the audience feels that they're part of the picture.
Okay, on one particular ocean crossing off Mission Bay, from Mission Bay to San Clemente Island, I saw a huge unidentifiable something, better known in the flying saucer field as a USO, or unidentified submerged object. Mm-hmm. I think this might fit the situation. The sea was flat calm, very clear, and I could see large jellyfish and other fish 30 feet underwater. The weather was sunny, warm, and it was 11 a.m. We were about 4 hours out of San Diego, and it was time for my tender to take the wheel. Mm-hmm. It was also commercial swordfish season. It's a known fact that a boat running at a constant speed can sneak up on a swordfish. I have brought the Mucha Cerveza within 2 to 4 feet of several swordfish that way, wishing I had a harpoon on board each time. Mm-hmm. As we continued on course, I noticed an unusual sight out the starboard window. A large swordfish was leaping high into the air. It made 6 leaps and then disappeared. It acted like something was chasing it. I suspected it was a large shark, but swordfish are very fast swimmers and usually don't fear sharks. I looked around for the tall dorsal fin for a pack of killer whales, but none were in sight. I made my way up to the bow and sat down with my legs dangling over each side and peered into the smooth, clear blue water below. Uh-oh. I calculated the track of the fish and its speed compared to ours, and figured we were close to where we could possibly cross paths. Nothing had broken the surface of the water anywhere around us since I had last seen the fish. Mm-hmm. I sat on the bow with one hand on the bow cleat for a while, just looking down into the depths of the water. Suddenly, something huge about the size of a full-grown killer whale came across the bow, 10 feet below the surface. It was all black and appeared as big or bigger than a boat, 28 feet. I quickly got to my feet and stepped back. The fish rolled to its right side and looked up at me, exposing its white belly. Its eye appeared as large as a dinner plate. The dorsal fin was about 2 feet to 3 feet tall, but not 6 feet like the male killer whale. It didn't have any of the usual killer whale markings, and when it rolled to its right side, I could see the tail fin was vertical, like a shark. Whatever it was, it didn't seem to be afraid of the boat as it eyeballed me, now standing several feet further back on the bow. It continued on its way with no further incident. Whatever it was, it never came to the surface. The fish simply disappeared as fast as it came. It is possible that it could have been a huge white shark, but if so, that would be pushing its maximum size, and white sharks don't have eyes the size of a dinner plate. Could it have been a small megalodon shark, or perhaps a porthole on a USO?
Wow, that is quite dramatic, and maybe a little traumatic as well.
Well, the thing, if it wanted to, it could have destroyed the boat, be it that big.
It could have, yeah.
It makes you very nervous at times because I have been in the water with about 17-foot white shark when he was only about 10 feet away from me. And I've had to decompress with a 12-foot mako for about 30 minutes underwater. I've been in schools of sharks when there were so many you couldn't even count them. So, but that's just all part of the job.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to invite our friends at home here, Salem, Kaiser area. If you have any friends who were in the Navy or who grew up along the seashore, you might want to make a copy of this particular program and share it with them on your VCR or whatever you use to videotape the show and all. And if you have any friends who are writers about their sea adventures or their Army adventures or anything that you could think of that has seen its way into print, please get in touch with us. Just email me at luckycoyne, LUCKYCOYNE @yahoo.com. Lucky Coyne, my camp counselor, once upon a time name. And I'll be happy to correspond with you and see if we could work something out. You may have a story in the making for yourself, either on CCTV or an article or a book. We don't know, but give it a try. Good. Thanks. Would you like to let us know what life has been like for you after you've gotten out of deep sea diving and you've had a chance to reflect on all of this? What does it look like to you in retrospect?
Well, I still miss the ocean from being underwater.
Yeah.
Like I say, after about 20 years, it becomes a real part of your life. But I found other work when I had to give it up at that time.
You got an injury, I gather.
Well,
some sort of.
To a roundabout point. But at that point, I had to give it up after about 20 years.
So what did you do after that?
Well, I went into another business that time. Basic above ground pool installation is a book that I had published back in the
You're a pool
70s.
shark.
Yeah. I installed above ground pools in the high desert of Southern California for about 10 or so years, and decided to write that book that time.
Okay. Any idea when your book will see the light of day, be published? And you got to get an agent.
Well, I'm trying to finish it up now with the final revisions, and then I'm going to start seeking out an agent.
Okay. How do you go about finding an agent? Maybe
through Writer's Market.
Writer's Market. So you can get a copy in the library, a reference book. Very wise. I myself intend to publish a book or two before I go bye-bye. Probably something about my career, well, my growing up in Brooklyn tentative title, Tales of a Tyke from Brooklyn. Some of the vignettes of things that happen. We can discuss it here maybe sometime on the show in future. But anyway, do you have any advice for future writers? We have just a few minutes left.
Well, a piece of advice that was given to me a long time ago, and I keep hearing it, and it sounds to be very true, and it's to write what you know.
What you know. Or what you imagine also.
Yeah.
From what your knowledge is. Of course, most of our fantasies and imagination are connected some way of revising and embellishing, good word, embellishing our knowledge base. And maybe as adults, it's a way to escape stress of going into the world of imagination and trying to do fiction and all. In fact, our next guest for the comic show, Carol Dare, who also is part of our writers group, may tell us a little bit about the world of fiction and how she got involved in that and how that plays out and all. Anyway, are there any advice you have, Jaws style or otherwise, for people who go near the water so they can avoid sharks?
Well, there's really no way to avoid the situation.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
I know as a kid, it's really funny, but I was out swimming off of a place out north of San Diego, and my dad was fishing, and I had no idea about this, but he tried to get me in real quick because he said there was a shark circling me at that time. And that was right off the beach.
Wow.
And I had no knowledge of it.
Okay, good.
So that was off of Oceanside.
Okay. Now, tell us just briefly about why you named your boat the Cerveza, which means beer in Espanol.
Well, I really didn't name the boat that.
How did it get to be?
I bought the boat with that name.
So you don't know
and
the
I
story
was going to
of
change it.
Yes.
But I decided after a while, everyone knows the name through the radio and everything else.
I'll drink to that.
So I just let the name go and lived with it.
Very good. Okay. I want to say ahoy there, friends out there. Thank you for tuning in our latest show of Our Awesome Authors. And I salute you. We'll see you on deck in the future. Stay tuned to CCTV. And thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.